It's good to see so many of you here. I'm Tim Christ, President of the Trustees of the Newark Public Library, and it's my privilege to welcome you here tonight. I hope you've had a chance to look at the exhibit, to greet our Council President, Mildred Crump. It's always such a delight to have her here. And to meet our interim director of the library, Joe Keenan, who is standing by the door. And Sheriff Armando Fontoura just walked in, so I'm also especially pleased to see Susan Cohen from the New Jersey Historical Commission, which provided the funding for the exhibit. Such good friends. This is an exciting occasion as we help to launch Newark's 350th anniversary. Not many cities in the United States can lay claim to that. A lot of work has gone into it this year, and there will be many, many events. As most of you know, the Newark Public Library has been serving Newark and Newarkers for more than 125 years. We have important initiatives underway now related to family literacy, to upgrading our digital infrastructure. But tonight we are reminded about just how important the Newark Public Library is as essentially the memory of Newark, the storehouse of so much that informs us about Newark's history. From the photographs and clipping files of the old Newark Evening News, to the city directories that so many of us look to see who lived where, when, from the papers of people like William Ashby, whose leadership in the civil rights efforts in Newark went all the way back to the 1920s, and some of us were privileged to meet him before he died at the age of 102, some 20 years ago. And indeed to Donald Karp's postcard collection, which he very kindly donated to the library a few years ago. The list of collections and materials related to the history of Newark go on and on and on. The most recent addition, we are delighted to say, is the photographs from the Star-Ledger. So when the Star-Ledger left Newark, the Newark Public Library got its photographic archive, plus access to its articles online far more than appear on NJ.com. So this is the place, it really is the storehouse of information about Newark. This really is Newark's memory palace, and we're so glad you're able to join us tonight. It's my privilege now to introduce John Johnson, who is the Executive Director of Newark Celebration 350, who's been a very busy man in recent months. And I suspect you're going to be just as busy for the entire year, John. Will you bring greetings?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out on this beautiful evening. Thank you. On behalf of Newark Celebration 350, where Judy Swins is the chairman, I bring you greetings. Welcome. Happy New Year in this celebratory, commemorative year. To wish Newark a happy birthday, and I thank you all for coming out for this particular occasion. Newark Celebration 350 has been organized to not only celebrate the city of Newark, but to change the narrative of the city, to engage its long and complicated history, to celebrate its people and its culture and its institutions, and to also look towards the future, to let not only Newarkers know and folks that live in the greater Newark area know, but indeed the nation and the world know that Newark is a destination for living, for business, even for play. And so we thank you for coming out this evening to begin the celebratory process. On this particular occasion, I'm reminded of a song my grandmother used to sing to me when I was a kid, especially at the beginning of the year. The words, I'm a little hoarse, so I can't sing tonight, but I'll make an attempt. Life is filled with swift transitions. Naught on earth unmoved can stand. You better build your hope on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Now, if you had an opportunity to examine the exhibit, to take a look at the pictures, you would notice that indeed life is filled with swift transitions. From 1666, when the Puritans landed, when Abraham Pearson and Robert Treat first landed, they had initially thought they were going to create a theocracy. That, of course, changed very quickly once it became a major trading destination. It became a major route, transportation route in between New York City, Philadelphia, Perth Amboy, even Elizabethtown. And so life is filled with swift transition. As the song implores us to do, we must build our hopes in things eternal. And so what are those eternal things? Tim hinted at it already. Places like Newark Library, where we have an opportunity to inscribe on what David Blight, the historian, calls the monuments of our mind, to re-examine history, to really get at what it was like, say, in 1916 here in the city, what it was like during 1960s, right? What it was like even during the 1980s. Life is filled with swift transition, and we have a great opportunity to recreate the narrative of Newark and to reinscribe in the minds of everyone here in the city and abroad the wonderful things that are taking place in Newark. And so we thank you for being here tonight, and I look forward to the presentation this evening, and I look forward to seeing you at many of the events for Newark Celebration 350. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Tom Ankner. I'm the curator of Newark at 350, Settlement, Growth, and Renewal. Thank you for coming out tonight to see our exhibit. I've had a great time working on it over the past few months, so I hope you enjoy it. Newark has a fascinating past. Newark has a fascinating past, which I hope comes across when you walk through the gallery. But it is also an exciting place to live right now, with the hockey arena, NJ Pack, the restaurants of the Ironbound, and the beautiful rehabilitation of Military Park. The city has a lot to offer. In addition, recent and ongoing development provide a promising future for this scrappy little city on the Passaic. The new Prudential Tower, the Indigo Hotel, and the construction to convert the old Haynes building into apartments and retail all bode well for the future. Well, a lot of hard work went into preparing the Newark 350 exhibit. I would like to just acknowledge a few of the people who helped me with it. Our recently retired director, Will McGray, supported this project from the beginning, and our interim director, Joe Keenan, has been very supportive as well. John Lopari and Nancy Zack generously loaned artifacts for display. Graphic artist Linda Lobdell designed the panels and the floor cases around the inside of the atrium. Dan Schnur arranged the images in the wall cases and provided design help. Nadine Sergejeff provided input on design ideas. Jane Seiden and Kate Jaggers edited my text and provided some valuable suggestions for changes. George Hawley provided me with the time I needed to work on the exhibit. And Heidi Kramer ably managed the whole process from beginning to end. I thank all of you. This would not have been possible without you. I would also like to acknowledge the funders of the exhibit. We received a project grant from the New Jersey Historical Commission and an Essex County Local History Group. And now I'd like to introduce Guy Sterling, who will be moderating our Newark Lifetimes series of conversations. Guy was a staff reporter at the Star-Ledger for over 20 years. 2 years ago, he came out with a book, Famous, the Familiar, and the Forgotten, 350 Notable Newarkers. The book offers capsule biographies of some of the people who have made Newark such a fascinating place. Several months ago, he approached us with the idea of doing a series of conversations at the library with some of the people profiled in his book. He saw, and we agreed, that this was an excellent program to mark the city's anniversary. The first of those conversations takes place tonight. And now, here is Guy Sterling.
Thank you. Test, this on, can you hear me? Yes, okay, fine. Unfortunately, Dr. Parsonette will not be with us tonight. His wife, Jane, had a minor accident inside the building on her way up to the exhibit floor and needed to be taken to the hospital for examination. So Dr. Parsonette will not join us tonight, unfortunately, but hopefully we can schedule him for another night in the series. So unfortunately, he's not with us. But I thought what I'd do, and this is going to be winging it a little bit, is that a couple of weeks ago, I spent a couple hours both with Donald Karp, who I've known for a while, and also Dr. Parsonette. So I'd like to almost kind of pretend that maybe he's here, and I will fill in, to a small degree, some of the stories that he told me, because I think that they're pretty fascinating, and I think that I'd like to share those with you tonight, because Dr. Parsonette is quite a man, and his family has quite a history in Newark, and I think that might be of some help. So let me thank everyone for coming out tonight in this inaugural program and a monthly series of conversations to help celebrate Newark's 350th anniversary. We've got lots of good programs to come throughout the year. Some of the people who have confirmed to us, and we are still finalizing dates, but Ken Gibson and Sharp James will be here in May, which is the actual anniversary month. Next month, in February, the 18th, I believe it is, Sheriff Fontura and Joe DiVincenzo, the county executive, will be my guests here. We're trying to present people from across as wide a spectrum of interest as possible. So we're going to have a sports night along the way, featuring Rick Cerrone, a baseball player, played with the Yankees for many years, coupled with Larry Hazard, boxing referee, a great note, and also the current state athletic commissioner. Mickey Taylor has confirmed she'll be here. Gloria Gaynor will be here. She's cutting a gospel album in Nashville right now, and is waiting to find out when the release date is, and she'll schedule the date after that. And we're also hoping that Savion and Yvette Glover will find a night here sometime. They want to do it. Many of you probably know that Savion has another play coming up on Broadway that's opening next month. He's choreographing it. It's called Shuffle Along. It looks really interesting, and right now he's up to his elbows, helping people who really aren't dancers become dancers. So, but we're hoping maybe he'll find some time this summer to come, because they do want to do the date. So we look forward to seeing all of you at these other programs. There will be adequate announcement for all that, and we'll be here once a month right through December. So I thought what we'd do next is I'm going to introduce our speaker who's here, as well as a speaker who's not, just so we'll all have a little idea of who these two great men are. If there was a nomination for First Citizen of Newark, I would make that nomination and have it be Dr. Victor Parsonette. Dr. Parsonette is a pioneer in cardiovascular surgeon in New Jersey. He implanted the first pacemaker in New Jersey. He was the first to perform coronary bypass surgery and heart transplant surgery. A little known fact about Dr. Parsonette is that he holds 5 patents. His grandfathers founded Newark Beth Israel Hospital in 1901. He is its former chief of surgery, and in the mid-1950s, 16 members of the Parsonette family were on the Newark Beth Israel staff. He still goes to work several times a week, still wears his lab coat. His father was also a doctor. His mother was a go-to piano instructor in Newark and a first-rate pianist who performed with a number of local groups featuring the best musicians. He picked up his parents' love of music, took lessons, and still plays the piano. He's even played at medical conferences that he attends. He has served as the chairman of New Jersey Symphony Orchestra and continues today as the chairman emeritus of the symphony. He's an avid reader, he's an avid record collector, and up until a few months ago when he hurt his hip, he was an avid tennis player. And Dr. Parsonet will tell you that he was a singles player. He doesn't play doubles because it doesn't raise his heart rate to the level that he wants. This gentleman sitting to my left is very well known in Newark circles. This is Don Karp. Don would certainly be in contention if there were nominations for the second citizen of Newark. He was born in Newark Beth Israel Hospital. He still maintained an office in Newark up until last year when he was pushed out of the office building next door. He now has his office in Livingston. But believe me, Newark is still close to his heart. He comes from a long line of Newarkers. His grandfather, his father, and his uncle all had businesses in Newark. He's a lawyer. He was admitted to the bar in 1961. He worked for the prestigious law firm of Riker Danzig, and then became a banker. He's the former chairman and CEO of Broad National Bank, which many people don't know was the successor bank to the Labor Cooperative National Bank in Newark, which was the bank that Justice William Brennan's father helped found here. Later, Don Karp was vice chairman of Independence Community Bank after it bought Broad National, and today it's Santander Bank. His banks helped finance many local businesses in Newark, especially after the civil unrest of 1967, as well as those of the city's immigrant populations. He is civic-minded. He is a former chairman of the New Jersey Historical Society. He's also one of the foremost collectors of Newark memorabilia, and he is also a big fan of the corned beef on rye at Hobby's. Please welcome Don Karp. So I thought what I'd do first is just we'll share a little bit of what these two gentlemen have in common, because that will give some background about their lives in Newark. Both Dr. Parsonet and Don Karp attended the Maple Avenue School and each studied at Cornell. Both lived in the city's Weequahic section and remember taking a trolley to downtown events, particularly at the Mox Theater or to the city's downtown department stores. Both are veterans. A little known fact about Don Karp is this. Don was a parole officer for Army and Air Force servicemen serving hard time at the military prison in Leavenworth, Kansas. And he once thought about making that his life's work. He didn't, fortunately for Newark, but still he was an early proponent and remains a proponent for restoring the civil rights of ex-felons. Both Don Karp and Dr. Parsonet have been cheerleaders for Newark almost all of their lives and remain strong supporters of the city and its future to this day. Both also have great children. Dr. Parsonet's daughter is a professor of medicine at Stanford. One son is a professor at Dartmouth Medical School, while the other son is an engineer in Colorado. And all three play several instruments. Don Karp's son, Jonathan, is president of Simon & Schuster. So let's talk a little bit about education in Newark, since both of these men went to the same grammar school. Don, do you have any memory of any teachers in Newark at the Maple Avenue School who may have helped shape your life? Any particular memories of the Maple Avenue School?
Yes, I do.
Testing. Hello? Okay. This isn't working.
Give him your mic.
It was working before.
Can you speak on the microphone?
Thank you.
Hello? Hello? Okay.
First of all, Guy, let me acknowledge this gentleman here. He's really done quite a job for Newark. Been responsible for programs about Justice Brennan, the Newark Fire Department, and many other things, including a great book right now, which is out. And I like to think of you in the tradition of Charles Cummings and Glenn Price. You know, know so much about the history of the city and doing such a great job for it, pushing it all the time.
Thank you, Don, but answer the question.
Okay. You really want to answer that question? I have to answer, honestly, yes, I would like to memorialize, may she rest in peace, Miss Milka Neefus, who was my math teacher in Newark. That's why I don't know one division today. She was quite a woman. She used to throw chalk at students and use pointers, and she terrified two generations of Maple Avenue school people. So if that's really the people. But I had some great teachers, Donald Karp for one, I remember, and I could talk to you about the Maple Avenue school teachers were really great, and it was a great school, and I had the privilege of going back there as a principal for the day later on, school was very nice. I enjoyed it there, yes.
Okay. So you didn't go to high school in Newark, you went to Montclair Academy instead. But you spent your sophomore and junior years as a page in Washington, D.C. with the help of Congressman Peter Rodino. Tell us a little bit about how you got to know Peter Rodino and the experiences and relationship you had with him over the years.
Yes, first of all, the reason, in those days, I don't know whether this is true today, but the Newark school system did not graduate, well, graduated people in February. I would have had to wait a whole year to get into college. So I skipped a year, went to Pension School for a while, and skipped a year, and went to Montclair Academy, which is now Montclair Kimberly Academy. I attended that school I actually graduated from that school, but my second and third years there, in 1952 and 1953, I served as a page in the House of Representatives, and Peter Rodino, who was someone who became known to me when I was a teen, did appoint me. It's a little complicated. You have to know something about the House of Representatives. Some congressmen have the ability to appoint people for pages and some don't, and most of them. And I had been attempting to become a page for a number of years, and I had seen a movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which I hope some of you have seen. And pages sort of run the place, and I thought this would be great. And I started writing letters to congressmen and people, and I remember speaking to Congressman Kane, who was actually in my district, the father of our governor. And eventually I remember speaking to a former governor of New Jersey, Harry Moore, who was a three-time governor of New Jersey. And he tried to help me, and eventually Congressman Rodino was receptive and did appoint me, and I went to Washington in 1952, and as I said, I was there in 1953 too. And he was I guess he was in his fourth term at that time, and if you remember, Congressman Agnizio was there too at that time. They were called the twins, and they both served in Congress for a number of years. And Congressman Rodino, could go on quite a way about him.
Tell us a little bit about your relationship with him through the years, because you maintained a close friendship with him.
Yes, well, he was a wonderful man, and I got to know him and his family, and he actually served in Congress for 40 years, and he became, when I first went there, I mean, he was a fairly new congressman, and he actually became the most well-known man in the country. He was on the cover of Time and Newsweek magazines because he was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee later on, which investigated or drew up the articles of impeachment for President Nixon. And when Speaker Tip O'Neill appointed him, it was quite a responsibility for him, but he did the job really wonderful. And later on, after he left Congress, he would come to my office and we would talk about things, and I would love to hear what he had to say about constitutional law. He was a portion authority. He did teach Seton Hall Law School, and he just did a lot of things. And he was just a wonderful guy. He was very important to the civil rights movement in this country, very important, and I know he's close to President Johnson on that.
You also cite as another of your influences Meyer Ellenstein, who served as mayor of Newark from 1933 to 1941. He was also Newark's only Jewish mayor. You lived in the same building with Ellenstein. Tell us a little bit about Ellenstein. Remind us of who he was and what his relationship was with you and your family.
Yes, well, Meyer Ellenstein, who was referred to as Doc because he was both he started out as a dentist, and then he became a lawyer, and then he became a mayor of Newark, and he was quite a fellow. If you imagine somebody coming out of central casting, he looked the part. He was a mayor, and he was a mayor of Newark during the very difficult Depression years, 1990s. I think he was mayor from 31 to about 41, something like that. And he worked closely with FDR. I know I've read a lot about this, and this is before my time. I was born in 1937. And Doc, as he was known, was very well respected in the city. But he has, as a lot of politicians, people get tired of them or they get into some problem or other. He has problems. In his second term, and he lost his election after 2 terms, but then he made a comeback, and he was the top vote getter in the mayoralty elections of 4 years later, and I think he served for 2 terms after that. And he did a lot of things for the city. He brought a lot of industry to the city. I know he's responsible for bringing in Anheuser-Busch here, and he was a good friend. Now, he used to, as I said, as you mentioned, he lived in the same building. We lived in a place called 19 Lions Avenue, which is now a condominium. And this building was the last building built before, built at the time of the Second World War began. And they weren't building buildings for about 5 years or so. And people who wanted to live in Newark or had to live in Newark because of affiliation with the city lived there, and there were other city officials who lived in the same building. And he had been, Doc Ellenstein had been a Golden Gloves champion too, so he loved prize fighting, and those were the early days of television, so his set would break once in a while, and we'd come down to my place and watch the set, watch the fights with me, and of course I learned fights from him. So he was a very nice fellow, and I will never forget that he did give me tickets to the 1951 World Series. I think it was the Giants. So, and his wife Ruth was very good friends with my mother, and I had the pleasure of working in his office. Not his office, but during his campaign, I actually stuffed envelopes and things of that sort, and it was something that introduced me to law and politics, so to speak. At least I got a flavor of it all from Doc Ellenstein.
Don, what did it mean to Newark's Jewish community to have Meyer Ellenstein as mayor?
Well, he was a leader. He was I believe, the chairman of the Conference of Mayors for the nation, and he was a leader in a lot of ways. I think everybody was very proud of him, and I think he was innovative, and for everything I knew, and the fact that he made a comeback. Now, he was, I should mention, take a second, we used to have the commission form of government in those days. There were 5 commissioners, and the 5 would decide who would be mayor. And then later on, and he was the last group, they brought in city council, a strong city council form of government, then later on through the efforts of an attorney named Lonesome Sandler.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your growing up in Newark. Now, Dr. Parsonet told me a story that I don't know how many people he's told, but it had to do with the one fight that he got in Newark when he was a boy, and how he still remembers to this day how he still has the memory of the other boy's fist coming in his face, and he got knocked down, and he decided then and there that that would be his last effort in a confrontation on the street. But you have a story about, in fact, probably something you don't remember that happened because it was when you were 6 months old. But tell the story about how you became, or you think the seed was implanted in your mind to become a lawyer.
Well, it definitely was, yes. That was a situation where my mother, we used to live on Elizabeth Avenue in those days. I think it was near Meeker Avenue. And my mother and a group of ladies were sitting in Woodway Park, right at the intersection there. About 6 months after I was born, this was 1937, about June, I guess. And a car came careening through the area and crashed into the whole group of women. And one child was killed, and a lot of women were injured. And my mother somehow threw me to a lady, or flipped me to a lady sitting next to her, and I wasn't hurt at all. But I went out with my picture on the front page of the New York Times, and from that point on, my mother was involved in litigation, and the other women were. And I heard a lot about lawyers, and learned a lot about, I guess, law in those days. My brother and I both became lawyers, probably because we heard so much about it. And in that case, which was a reported decision, which I have, established the law of respondeat superior in New Jersey. The fact is that the driver of the car were a couple of guys who should not have been permitted to use the vehicle, and the employer was responsible, and that was a legal case. Some of the great attorneys of the area were involved in that case, and I do remember that a lot of these things involve people that I meet later on. If you're in an area as long as I have been in Newark, they come around. I remember Judge Richard Hartshorn was apparently the judge of the county court at that time. Later on, he became a federal judge, and I know I appeared before him later on when I became an attorney. And so I knew the other attorneys as well, and it was very interesting.
Okay, so you grew up right across the street, really, from Wequahic Park, and that was really your playground as a boy. Tell us about some of the things at Wequahic Park that you took advantage of as a boy.
Well, Wequahic Park was quite a place. They had, my earliest recollections are of the trotting races they used to have in Wequahic Park. And that was, I couldn't believe it. Later on I realized they had trotting races in Wequahic Park. And then they, of course, had the lake there, and they had boats on the lake for a lot of years. Of course, my friends and I, we would do more interesting things like ride our bikes down to the railroad tracks and try to press pennies on the tracks to see what would happen. And we used to sleigh ride at the golf course, and later on I did some caddying at the golf course, and later on I played at the golf course.
And you swam in the lake too, right?
No, that I didn't.
You changed your story on me. But you rode your bike around. I mean, it was
rode the bike everywhere, day and night, and without helmets. It's amazing when you think about no helmets and no seatbelts, or we led a whole life like that. And I think it was eventful. Of course, I grew up during those war years. 1941, war was declared. Pearl Harbor happened December 7, 1941. And we were very happy to have John Wayne win it for us, but it was very exciting for being a young boy in those days. And we used to have a lot of, I actually remember selling savings, I guess we call war bonds, to our neighbors. Everybody in this apartment house, we all knew each other very well. And it was different than anything I've known since then. People knew each other and were very helpful about a lot of things.
And you used to see the notorious mobster Lonnie Swillman in the neighborhood too, correct?
Well, you didn't meet him. He was a friend of Meyer Allenstein, and that was admitted to Keith Avery hearings, which happened later, which I watched vehemently in my It was on television. This is something that happened. He would come in to see him, and would be in the middle. I would say I knew who he was, so I would say hello, and that's about it. I had no connection.
None of you are going to tell us anyway.
I was 10 years old.
Okay, so also in your high school years, you were an usher at the Mosque Theater. Tell us about any of the unusual concerts or the big stars that you saw there in your years as an usher.
Well, that was something which you, I think, read in the program about Mrs. Griffith, or you had something to do with that.
Yes.
There's a lady by the name of Mrs. Parker O. Griffith from Griffith Music Foundation, and that was our NJ Pack of those days. They had no NJ Pack. They had the Music Foundation, and it was a series. It was a series presented every year, and they would have everyone from, I would say, well, I can't remember all of the virtuosos who appeared, but both instrumental and otherwise. And I remember I mentioned to you that I met Madame Jaritza there once, and
Tell us about her, if you remember.
she was very nice, and she signed my autograph.
But she drew a big crowd. I mean, it was a major event when Madame Jaritza.
Well, she was just there as I met her as she was just sitting there as a attendee. But everyone would come to the Mosque Theater in those days. The building's still there, as you know, and it was built to last. And of course, later on, they had Channel 13 was here too. I'm actually today still involved with Channel 13. I'm on the advisory board of Channel 13 in New York. But I used to, I told you, I used to find radio very interesting when I was growing up, and I used to go to watch radio broadcasts WAAT, which was in the top of the Hotel Douglas, which is now a senior citizens residence on Hill Street in Newark. And they had a lot of great disc jockeys there, and that's where I picked up my love for country music.
Did you know Mort Lindsay as the usher at the Mosque Theater, who later became Judy Garland's musical director?
No, I never heard of it.
Another one of your pastimes that you told me about was your trips to Rupert Stadium to see the Newark Bears.
Yes,
it was a big treat.
That was great. One of the things that you had when you went to Maple Avenue School, or I guess any Newark school, they would let you go to see the games at Rupert Stadium, and we were members of what was called the Knothole Gang. And they would put you down the bus and we'd go down there, and it was a lot of fun.
Did you play the game?
I played baseball in school. No, sure.
Any
Not
good?
very good, no.
No. Do you remember seeing any of the great teams that the Bears had?
No, but I'm sure I watched the Yogi Berra. He played against the Bears. Charlie Keller. I know a lot of great Yankees played there. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so by the time you finished your education in the military service, it was 1964, and you came back to Newark to practice law. What were your impressions of the city upon your return?
Well, first let me go back to the military. I think I probably went over that a little fast in my comments to you before. What happened with the military, I received a commission in the Army when I graduated from college, and the Army permitted me to finish law school, and I did that, and then I had to go take the bar exam and go into the Army. And when I was assigned to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and that is the place, the military prison for Army and Air Force offenders. But I really want to take the time back because it was really a very interesting 2 years I had. I got very interested in penology and I studied it, and I did want to, and I still did do work advancing the rights of ex-felons and it involved in that whole subject. But the Army prison, most of us think of the Army prisons as what you see in From Here to Eternity. This particular place, by the way, has been rebuilt since it's probably the most modern and best well-endowed prison in the United States, with many courses for students and doctors and psychologists and things of that sort. And my position there was basically interviewing parolees, people who wanted to go on parole or be released. And I work with parole officers all over the country and with Washington, D.C., and got these people back into civilian life. And the object was to permit them to have supervision and training in the community before they were just released cold.
So you come back to Newark in 1964, after your schooling, after your military service. You've been out of the city for at least a couple of years, if not longer. What are your impressions of Newark when you return?
Well, it was a very busy place, and it was a wonderful place. It still is. By the way, I think very highly of Newark, and I think very highly of the people who served it and have served it. I practiced law, and I was very busy doing that. And
okay, we're going to get to that in a little bit. But let me ask you this: did you know Paul Stillman, and what were your impressions of him if you did? Paul Stillman was essentially Newark's business leader in the middle part of the 20th century. He was simultaneously the chairman and CEO of Mutual Benefit and the First National State Bank, and the business school at Seton Hall today is named for him. And he must have been quite a power in Newark.
He was, of course, he was my senior, and I was a lowly young attorney at that time. So I knew who he was, and actually I worked for Irving Reichler at Reichler Danzig, and he was chairman of Fidelity Union Trust Company, and of course senior partner of the law firm there. But Paul Stillman was a giant of his time, and we had a number of those in the area. The business community always supported the places like Newark Library and the Historical Society, and it's always been a very good community. I remember when we got involved, jumping a little bit to with Independence Community Bank from Brooklyn, and we brought the people from Brooklyn out here. They were surprised at how much community involvement there was with Newark. All the corporations here really supported the people here, and they took a real interest in what was going on here.
You told me that the civil disturbances of 1967 didn't make you want to leave Newark as it did some others. On the contrary, they made you want to stay and rebuild the city. Why was that? How did you do it? And was there a similar sentiment in the city's business community, or were there forces of resistance that you had to overcome?
Well, just what you said is true, and I was thinking of that after you asked me some of these questions. And what we had here in 1967, which was very tragic, but it wasn't that much different than what you saw in 9/11. People got together and said, "Well, what do we do to fix this place, and what do we do to make it better?" We loved Newark beforehand, and we wanted to see it better afterwards. And there was a lot to do. And a lot of people were running out of Newark, in fact did, and Newark changed quite a bit. I think one of the things I realized when I was coming down here tonight, just driving down here, I was in a traffic jam. Well, there were times, there were a lot of years here in Newark when you didn't have traffic jams. You didn't have anything. I mean, and,
maybe even in the middle of the day.
Right. So Newark has come a long way, and we had a lot of people here. A lot of them are in this room here. At least some of them are in this room here, who I know were involved in 1967, and we served on committees together. And there's just a lot of things that were done. I mentioned Clint Price before, was involved in that later, and certainly Charles Cummings and so many other people.
But there were forces of resistance, correct? There were people who told you you were crazy.
Oh yes, and it was there was a lot of problems. We had people such as Tony Imperiali who sort of were counterproductive, but I believe he came around later. There were people on both sides. Yes.
How was he counterproductive?
How was he counterproductive? Well, I think I remember some. I remember a lot of the disputes that happened in those days. Was it Kuwaiti Towers or something like that? And these were not productive forces in those days. By the way, I understand that Sarah Palin endorsed Donald Trump tonight.
Well, Don likes to brag that he's one of the few Democrats who's a banker. How did that happen, Don?
Well, I was a Democrat. I would like to tell a story, actually, about that. I was as I mentioned before, I was a page, and I was there in 1953, and history tells us that in 1953, the Republicans won the Congress, won the House of Representatives for the first time, I think, since FDR was elected. And I was asked to come back, and we were there, and then we realized that our congressmen were endowed with a patronage. They couldn't appoint us. And Republican boys started coming in, and eventually I was fired. I was in the position of being a political has-been at the age of 15. So, but Congressman Rodino did do what was a wonderful thing. He went to, the only person who had any power in those days was Sam Rayburn, who was the Speaker of the House for probably longer than anybody else ever. And he had power, and he contacted a congressman in New Jersey by the name of Frank Osmers, who was a congressman from, I guess it was Teaneck, and he was a Republican. And he was nice enough to let me stay there for the rest of the year, or I would have lost a year of school. So, things like that happen, and yes, I'm very much a Democrat, and still have been. support most of the Democratic candidates who run.
So if we go back to the late 60s, I want to say that in that same year, Broad National also caught the wave of Portuguese and other immigrants coming to Newark. And at one time, Broad National had 5 branches in the Ironbound alone. Why did the bank decide to make that commitment?
Well,
it was risky, isn't it?
I wouldn't say it was risky. We just had a lot of good people who worked for us, and a number of them were of Portuguese extraction, and they recommended that we do this, and it was good business. We did very well there, and the Portuguese community appreciated it, and we appreciated them. And I remember marching in the Portuguese Day Parade, as well as the Columbus Day Parades, in Newark in those days. Our bank, and I should say something about the bank. The bank was unique. It started out, you mentioned, as a labor cooperative national bank, which was founded in 1925, June 25, 1925. It was founded by the labor movement because labor people could not get loans, they couldn't do anything, and they wanted to have their own bank. And then later on, when the Depression came, it changed, and it got into more of a business mode. And people served in the bank who were leaders in the community. One of our board members at one time was former Governor Ben Byrne. Bill Marfucci was treasurer of the state, served on our board too. And the bank really served the community. And that's what we tried to do, and that's the reason why eventually Independence Community Bank from Brooklyn, which was doing the same kind of thing there, wanted to merge with us. They wanted to have the same expertise we did in how to work with the community and how to do things.
And it's the case that Broad National financed a number of the Portuguese restaurants in the Ironbound.
We did finance a number of the Portuguese restaurants in the Ironbound.
So here he is, the man who's responsible for our great Portuguese meal.
I'd like to mention one thing that we didn't touch on, and you asked me about it, and I take a second to. So I would like to acknowledge this. One of the things, I practiced law for a lot of years before I got involved in banking, and when I was practicing law, I was representing the Trinity Cathedral here, which was the Episcopal Church, part of the Episcopal Church. And they owned a building which had been given to them during the riots, the Fireman's Building. And this building was given to them, I think, for $1. And